Quit using this retirement account first. Man, so many people want to retire. They want to use one account or the other. And it's really like, well, which account do you use? You have three different options for the most part. I mean, you do have an HSA, which is a totally separate account that you could consider at different times having the opportunity for. But really, the three accounts that we want to talk about are an individual, which is also known as a brokerage account, or a joint account if you're married and you have them together, or what would be called a taxable account. They're all the same thing. Then you have pre-tax accounts, your 401k, a rollover IRA, anything pre-tax. Then you have your Roth accounts. The Roth accounts are the ones that sometimes people are like, man, I don't want to pay taxes right now. I'm just going to use this thing. I'll show you the reasoning why we want to consider the Roth later, and I'm also going to talk through the other two accounts as well. So first, you know what? Let's start on the Roth and let me talk to you about that one. Let's go over to the handy-dandy board and let's talk about this thing for a minute. Your Roth IRA. We like to call this bucket 3. Now, you know, whether you use buckets or however you want to line out your plan, the idea is the Roth IRA is money that's in here, and let's just say that you have $100,000. Well, if you have $100,000 in your Roth and you can invest this aggressively, we already know that, you know, if you get a 7.2% return over a 10-year period of time, your money's going to double. So now you're going to have $200,000. Well, if you retire at 60, potentially this could continue to compound, and you invest this opportunity right here for growth, and it's going to be tax-free money for you all the way through retirement in the later years. The problem is that if you don't do the Roth first, or if you use the Roth first, you're going to then get into a bind possibly with pre-tax problems, with RMDs, things that you haven't really thought about, because a lot of people say, you know what, I'm going to buy a car and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spend $50,000 here on this car. I don't want to pay taxes on it. I'm going to pull it from the Roth. Well, guess what? That could really mess you up in the long term. So it's something to look at. There's not a set rule on this, but I'm going to show you in Nest Egg as well a little bit of what I'm talking about when it comes to this, because you know, there are the scenarios where maybe I could build in for you specifically. Again, I say there could be here on this one, but where you need to go buy a vehicle. And if you go buy the vehicle, maybe part of it is going to have to come from the Roth because we don't have another option, and you could get pushed into a higher tax for Medicare, which would have an IRMA tax for the next year. And there's all these compound problems that could come into play. But in general, let's really think through this and look at this scenario here in Nest Egg. So in Nest Egg, the financial planning tool that we use here with our clients at Jazz, if you hadn't checked it out before, what we're looking at is this is retired Roger. Retired Roger's 60, he's retiring this year, and he's focused on his retirement expense. But if you look over here, what I've built in is go-go years. So for the first 10 years of Roger's retirement, he's actually going to be spending more money. Now, we see this as a really common theme when it comes to retirement, because who wants to retire and not live? You've worked your whole life, you've done all these things, and you've struggled, and you got by, and you saved. Well, now you want to live. And so with retired Roger, we have in here the $20,000 go-go years, so you can do a little bit of living, a little bit of traveling. And then we know that, you know what, probably at 70, 80 years old, Roger might start slowing down. Now, I'm sure you've probably got somebody in your family that's still running around at 85, but we don't know of many that haven't at least started to slow down there. And so if we're looking at this scenario with Roger, really what we want to look at is just your tax situation. Now, I cheated a little bit, and I already got in here and built this out for you so that I can show you, so I'm not going to take up all of your time. But the idea is figuring out what the best distribution strategy is for your retirement plan. Now, you know, there's a lot of different rules of thumb with this and a lot of different things that we can think through. But if we're looking at the specifics here, this plan in general, the way we would do this is if he were to go through, he would actually be able to have 100% tax-free in retirement. Now, who doesn't want that? So if we're looking at this scenario, you can see that Roger is going to eventually have a higher tax bracket when he's in those go-go years from a different period of time. But look down here in the RMD years, once he's starting his RMD, he's not going to have this massive increase. That's a great thing, right? And if you don't think so, you've got to think through an RMD is going to force you into higher tax brackets sometimes than what you want to be in. And it could also, depending on how much you've saved and how much is pre-tax, push you into a higher category. So then Medicare tax comes into play and you have this IRMA tax that's an additional tax on top of the regular tax. Did I say tax? And so looking at this right here, we've got this scenario specifically is a standard you're going to pull from a taxable account first. So with Roger, he has some taxable money, so money that in that individual account, that taxable account. Then he has tax-deferred money that he's going to grab from the next time. Then he's going to finally touch that tax-free money last. Again, letting it compound and grow. And that money's going to have a lot of opportunity for you long-term because it's all tax-free. You don't have to worry about RMDs, anything like that. And so if I compare that to, let's just say that, hey, Roger wants to take tax-deferred money first. You know, some people have said that. And again, this is a scenario. I want to make sure I'm telling you that because your scenario could be slightly different. But in general, if I'm looking at this, if I tell retired Roger to take tax-deferred first, then the taxable, you would think that that could possibly make a lot of sense. But it does not. And instead, what we're doing here in this scenario is we're actually converting just up to the 10% tax level. We're going to try to keep his taxes at basically minimal, if anything, for the first little bit. And then he's going to jump into the pre-tax accounts eventually once all of the money or some money is converted. He's going to spend most of that down. He'll have a little bit left. And then looking over here is the light blue line. That's basically where he's going to eventually all be tax-free. There's not going to be any money as long as he does that conversion. This provides $133,000 more for retired Roger's plan by doing that versus doing something wrong. And so just giving you another idea with this, if we just, break this out, there's another one called the pro rata rule where you just say, well, you know what, I'm going to take from different things at different times. If you were to do that in the same exact scenario, again, you would still have $92,000 more by doing what I'm sharing with you. So it's something that to think about. Make sure you're making the right decision with your dough. That's what we like to do with clients here at Jazz. Make sure you have a good financial plan. If you don't have one, you can check us out, jazzwealth.com. We'd be happy to help you.
Why should you choose Jazz Wealth as your retirement or long-term investing service? Our portfolios are managed by us, not some faceless mutual fund manager. Our private classes will teach you everything about investing and getting your dough straight. Best of all, our fiduciary standard means your best interest comes before ours.